Good evening, everybody. Henry Ball here, going solo tonight. The lovely Tammy Owens is in beautiful, sunny Hawaii on the beach and spending time with her family. So she is not with us tonight, and hopefully, she is having a fabulous time in Hawaii. But here I am, and I will be answering questions. If you would place your questions or your comments in the chat, I will see it over here to the right, and I will try to answer as many questions as I can. One of the big things I would like to talk about tonight is what you see scrolling across the bottom of the screen, A Thin Blue Crime, the new podcast by Storied Press, hosted by Joy Burney, and executive producers myself, Matt Duff, and Joy Burney. We are proud to announce that the first episode will drop next Tuesday, 1 week from today. So we are on the final countdown. So if you have not yet gone to Spotify to follow A Thin Blue Crime, please do so. We need as many followers as possible. And I'd like to kind of take the opportunity for those of you who are here and have kind of been faithfully following our Tuesday Q&As and certainly been following the Michael Chappell is Innocent Project through everything that we've been through. A lot of people have kind of, now, I don't want to say faded away, but aren't paying as close of attention. I think there was a lot of disappointment by the recent ruling by the judge. I did see a question that I think is going to come up about that, and we'll certainly go into that. But if you know of somebody that has been in the group that you haven't heard from in a while, please reach out to them and reach out to everybody and say, hey, the new podcast, A Thin Blue Crime, is dropping on Tuesday, September 1st. That's next Tuesday. And let's get that momentum built back up. We really need Mike's story to get out there. I'm not exactly sure where the appeal is going to land, but it's going to land, and we are going to really need people to know what's happening in this case. I've shared a few recent stories, and there's just been a lot of stories around the country about really old exonerations, people that have spent 25, 30, 35. I think one the other day was like 45 years in prison for crimes that they didn't commit. And these things are horrible. They're a travesty of justice. And, I think what we've seen in this case is that sometimes the justice system seems to really be geared around defending itself when it should be geared around justice. And that's what we're asking for. We're asking for justice. And I think that's not just a Michael Chappell thing. There's a lot of innocent people in prison for crimes they didn't commit thing. And that doesn't need to be the case, that we don't need to live in that world. And especially if in that world, there's really nowhere to turn. Once you get wrongfully convicted, there's kind of no way out. That's not the America that I think any of us expect to live in. So, I think we have to raise our voice. And I believe A Thin Blue Crime is going to be a step in that direction. And I have said this before, I'll say it again. I believe we are telling the most complete story that has ever been told in the Michael Chappell case. And I think you're going to love it. I think it's going to be a great podcast. I think it's going to make a lot of us even angrier than we already have been at this situation. But hopefully it'll help us, raise some voices and maybe change some things in the justice system. And really that's what needs to happen. Could somebody post a comment? I can't see if comments are coming through or not, and maybe it might be me. There we go. Our faithful William Hughes. Hey, brother, how you doing? And we've got other folks chiming in now. So, welcome. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me you're here, and if you've got some questions, go ahead and start rolling. But that's my pitch on A Thin Blue Crime, episode 1 dropping next Tuesday. I hope everybody's excited for it. If you're not already following us on Spotify, please go to Spotify, find A Thin Blue Crime by Henry Ball, and follow away. And 1 week from today, you're going to start hearing what I think is going to be the definitive story on Michael Chappell. So look forward to everybody hearing and being able to discuss it and talk about it. So here we go. We got folks in from Buford and Yvonne. I think that means you're out shopping. I'm not sure. Marietta. Okay, that makes more sense. Welcome from Marietta. And so I think next, hey, in Covington, right down the road from me. I think the next thing is that I probably need to let you guys know where Killing Henry stands. It is at the printer. It's been formatted and ready to go. But we did one final edit pass and found about 3 or 4 things that needed to be corrected. I've got to get those corrected pages to the printer, and then they will begin the process. I think we're probably not going to have books in time for the Fuzz run. I'm still kind of thinking about what to do about that. Maybe a good time just to get out and tell people about the podcast. We do have Michael Chappell books and that kind of thing. But I'm thinking that Loganville will probably be the book launch. So I will keep you guys posted on that. But it is in progress and it's pretty much ready to go. So just bear with me just a little bit longer, and Killing Henry will be hitting the bookshelves very soon. And so that's what I have to share with you about A Thin Blue Crime and about Killing Henry. Before William Hughes, who's in the belly of the beast in Lawrenceville, ask. I have had further conversations with our friend Tukey, and he's got specific things that he needs to get to me. He has started getting me some of those documents, and he promised to have the rest of them to me very soon. And we have talked about a couple of different options of what we can do. I'm still kind of leaning towards filing a parole reconsideration, but I kind of need to see what's appropriate in his particular case. So we are working on it. Sorry, there's not more of an update. I wish we could just be full steam ahead, but certain things have to be in place first. So that's where we are on that. William, thanks for asking, even though you hadn't quite asked yet, but I'm sure it was coming, and I appreciate that, by the way. And so any other good questions? Have you ever chatted with JP Morgan's family? So that's actually a great question. I have made contact with a member of JP Morgan's family, and somebody that has worked closely with me from an investigation standpoint, somebody that is in law enforcement and well respected in law enforcement, actually had connections to members of the JP Morgan family, and he was essentially acting as an emissary for me. And we had some very productive conversations. Those conversations were ongoing kind of before all the drama kicked off, and I think the drama kind of derailed those conversations. But a few things that we learned was there was a confirmation on the story about the neighbor and the gun. And there was confirmation about the destroyed hard drives, and that those hard drives may physically still exist. And whether or not the data is retrievable, I don't know. But my understanding from where we were in those conversations at the time was that those hard drives do physically still exist, and they are somewhere in the possession of the JP Morgan family. So yes, I have in some ways had communications with the JP Morgan family, and that's kind of what I can share about that. And great question. Do we have any other questions for this evening? Guys, you're going to make me have a complex. I went solo, and I was like, well, everybody's going to step up and they're going to ask me lots of great questions. And, we're all going to miss Tammy, but, it's going to be great because I'm going to just answer all the questions, and we're going to have lots of questions. And I don't see a lot of questions except this one, which is a great question. Anything in the podcast that will shock us? I think the better question, Yvonne, is there anything in the podcast that won't be shocking? Yes, there will be things in the podcast that all of us, including me, have found to be shocking. And so yeah, the answer is there will be some shocking information that you've never heard before. Any word on the last ruling by the court? No. And I'm not 100% sure that ruling has been filed. Peach Court shows that it has, but it doesn't, normally you can download the full document and it's not available for download. But the way the order was written, it sounded like the judge was filing his response with the order to kind of vacate the original order, but it doesn't appear that he has. And I believe Billy is on vacation. He has not responded to me. I did speak with kind of my direct contact in Mike's direct family yesterday, and they haven't heard anything either. And they were kind of looking to me to see if we had any more information on that. And so we don't. I mean, we kind of know what he was changing, but how he's changing it and, what all it's going to say, we don't know yet. And I'm very, very interested in that. Hopefully we'll be able to report more on that next week. Why would the person that removed the hard drives return them to the family? So that's not what happened. He destroyed them in that. And, I don't know. Like he didn't take a hammer to them. It's kind of like the Hillary Clinton thing, what was that bleach bit? What do you mean? Wiped them with a rag? I don't know exactly what methodology he used to quote unquote destroy the hard drives, but the hard drives themselves remained at JP Morgan's house. The data was destroyed, deleted, and it wasn't just that the files were deleted. According to the reports, some destructive effort was made to destroy those hard drives so that they would not be readable. But the physical boxes remained with the Morgan family. So there was no return. Now, what did leave with Hearst that night was the box of disc. And that's either still in Bodie Hearst possession or, whatever he did with them after he left. And he also did take the, not a MacBook, but a PowerBook, which was essentially an early generation laptop. He did take that with him. So the hard drive that was connected to that is still in Bodie Hearst's possession. But at JP Morgan's house was two essentially desktop computers with desktop hard drives, and those hard drives remained at his residence. Does that make sense? I think I answered that correctly. I hope everybody understands. And I think I've got all the questions. Any more questions, guys? All right. Well, this is where we're missing Tammy, because Tammy would keep the conversation going. But we have Yvonne, thankfully, for that. How was it explained that Hearst was the one to that? I guess you mean to say to do that? Well, he was the one charged with it. And the reports show that he was, in fact, I think it was in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that John Laddie said, we sent Bodie Hearst in to secure the suicide note. And so there's never been any question that it was Bodie Hearst that was sent in to secure the suicide note, and that it was Bodie Hearst that destroyed the hard drives. He was charged with it. Those charges were eventually dropped. And, you know, as I said, I think last week, he was allowed to take an offered plea on one count, and he was able to keep the $10,000 that he stole from the evidence room. So all in all, you know, he got a pretty good deal. It was a good deal for him, but not a good deal for justice. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight. I hope that my solo debut wasn't as painful as it probably was, but I appreciate you all being here. One more question. Has Laddie or Burnett ever came out to say anything about this case? No, not that I'm aware of, at least not since I have started my investigation. I did reach out to both of them and never received any responses. And all I can say is that I do know that they received my messages, but they chose not to answer. And I don't think that either one of them have made any public comments since I started my investigation. And thank you very much. It's a lot of information, and I hope that it is good information for everyone. And then, are most of the people involved in this cover-up still alive? I would say, yeah. I would say most of the key players. There are some that have passed away. There was, at least one or two other suicides. There have, been pretty much everybody has retired in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I would say the majority of the people that were involved. But I do want to say this. One of the criticisms of Mike's, attempts to find justice throughout the years has been that, it's this big sweeping conspiracy, and he's claiming that all these agencies and all these law enforcement officers and all these officials, conspired, against him. No, I don't think that's the case. I think there's a handful of people that are much more knowledgeable about what really happened. And there's a handful of people that it essentially became their careers and their jobs on the line, that, have had a stake in making sure that the truth about the Michael Chappell case never really comes to light. So I don't think it's this big, grand, sweeping conspiracy. Do I think that there are some people that have an intimate knowledge of what really happened and that Michael Chappell is innocent yet still in prison? Yes, I do think there's there's a number of people that are aware of that and have that information firsthand. But I do not think that it was this grand sweeping conspiracy that the Gwinnett County Police Department got together with the GBI and they talked to the FBI and everybody agreed, hey, we're just going to railroad this guy, for giggles. No, I don't think that's what happened. I think, and I've said this, I've said as much, I think publicly and published, that I think by the time Danny Porter and some of those close to the investigation realized that they had been duped, they were all in because they had essentially accused Michael Chappell of being the bad guy, and they had blamed him for so much stuff that they couldn't unwind that clock. They couldn't put that genie back in the bottle for their own selfish reasons. I'm certainly not justifying it. I'm just saying that I don't think it started out as some grand conspiracy. And I don't think it ever turned into a grand conspiracy with, all of these other agencies. I think there's a handful of people that were in the right positions that knew what had occurred, and they made a decision that that's what needed to happen. So that's where it is. Yes, she was willing to testify to that. We were a little bit disappointed that she didn't get a chance to tell her story, her whole story. You will be able to read her whole story in Killing Henry, and she has interviewed for Thin Blue Crime, and she certainly has talked about those things. So you'll definitely want to pay attention in both Killing Henry and A Thin Blue Crime, but you'll be hearing more from Officer Maria. So I have time for one more question if it pops up really quickly. And I will take this opportunity to thank you all again. As always, I couldn't have gotten here without you. I appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. And it's really my honor to be the leader of this group, the Michael Chappell is Innocent Project, because I think you guys are awesome and I appreciate everything. And I'm going to let our good friend William have the last question. And is there anything beyond the appeal? Yes. Here's the thing. And I don't know if you saw the article that I posted the other day, but apparently the Georgia Supreme Court is going to stop hearing murder appeals. So if you were wrongfully convicted of a murder in the state of Georgia, the Georgia Supreme Court no longer wants to hear about it. And that to me is just astonishing. That said, you have to exhaust that avenue in order to go to a federal habeas. And so we have to file the state appeal. And whatever the state does, if the state Supreme Court says we don't want to hear it, well, we've exhausted that avenue. If they take it up and say, yeah, we think Judge Karp was great, and, who would believe that Imogene Thompson was really at that hotel? I mean, the only people that put her there was the lead detective and the lady working at the front desk and the guy who witnessed the murder. But other than that, who would believe that? And so if the Georgia Supreme Court, upholds Judge Karp, then we still have the avenue to go to the federal habeas. And to me, and this is just me, I'm not an attorney. You guys know I don't play one on TV. But to me, that is probably the best avenue, because we essentially get to bring the entire habeas case to the federal level. And all of the things that we didn't know at the start of the habeas at the state level, well, we kind of now know, and we already have those experts, and we have those experts teed up. And I think the ridiculous notion that you can't be an expert if you don't go to the crime scene 30 years ago is not something that would hold up at a federal level. And so, yes, whatever happens with the state appeal, and I hope for the best. I hope the Georgia Supreme Court looks at it and says, "Hey, man, this guy's suffered long enough," and does the right thing. In the event that they do not, yes, we also have the opportunity to file a federal habeas, and that's one of the motivating factors of getting the state appeal done, so that we still have that avenue for the federal. So thank you for that question, and I appreciate you as well, Yvonne, and everybody. I appreciate everybody for continuing to hang in there, and please, guys, talk to everybody man. Let's make a Thin Blue Crime really hit, and let's get as many ears on this story and on this case as we possibly can. And so I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate everything you do, and I'll look forward to talking to you next Tuesday, if not sooner. And remember, next Tuesday, a Thin Blue Crime coming to a podcast near you. I'm out. Have a good night.